So good evening and a hearty welcome to all of you from Edu Extension. So I've spent 40 years in the field of education, starting from girls' school to co-ed schools, CBSE to CISCE, that working as a principal in all these institutions. This journey has given me a lot of satisfaction. I have recently retired, but wish to continue my journey to the, and this desire of mine has given birth to Edu Extension, a platform where we extend our learning through webinars, where we interact, discuss, and share our thoughts with distinguished personalities of different disciplines, thus adding to what education has given us. So that means the Edu Extension is a kind of extending further to what we know. And you know, these 40 years, during these 40 years, I've come across excellent people, the educators who can really make the change and who have changed the life of the children. The way of their teaching, the way of expression, the way of interacting is so different, so unique. That is very rare to find such people. Now the Edu Extension wishes to bring such people into limelight so that they can share their knowledge, their way of teaching with others. So today, Edu Extension again welcomes all of you, and Edu Extension asks for support of all of you because it's starting its journey from today, with all of you taking together. So I expect and I wish to have your support to make the journey of all the educators a success. Thank you, everyone. And today in the same line, we have a very distinguished personality in the field of filmmaking, from the field of filmmaking, Miss Nidhi Bal Singh. Miss Nidhi Bal Singh is a documentary filmmaker, academician, and owner of Kabir Productions. There is so much to her credit. I've just taken few from there. She is the alumni of Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi. She started her career with NDTV, and she taught filmmaking in a college at Oman. She was associate professor media studies at KIIT University, Bhubaneswar, has been pursuing own interest of filmmaking, and has made films on government advocacy and crime prevention. Look at the broad spectrum. Her projects were showcased in National Geographic Channel, and she has to her credit the award-winning film, Fistful of Steel. So over to Nidhi, please. We welcome you once again from Edu Extension. Yes, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. And it's a privilege to be here. I share your sentiments for the extension of education. And this is a very noble idea that you have come up with. I congratulate you, and I hope for a long, successful career of yours in this line ahead.
Thank you, Nidhi.
About myself, Auntie has already told everything, and nothing much to add. I love filmmaking, it's a passion, and I love teaching, that is also a passion. I have felt that these are the two things I do best, except for mothering my boys. I think I'm doing my best there, but that's it. So, and today I was asked by Malini Auntie to share some of my experiences with you, and also to probably guide a few of you who are avid social media users or who need certain help to build your own social media content. So social media content does not necessarily have to be, just photographs and videos, but maybe, some more informative videos, some ideas you want to share, blogs you want to write, films you want to make, So from short films to maybe longer films, I am going to try to take you through a journey of, what it actually comprises in making a film. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And it's a very vast topic. It takes very long. I have really tried to compress it, and I hope that, I will be able to solve most of your problems along the way. Okay, so should I start with the presentation, Auntie?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Nidhi.
Okay, so okay, so as I discussed, I will share with you how to make a film. So it's basically filmmaking basics and how to generate content for social media, quality content for social media. So now, when we're talking of the present, we cannot start by just talking of the present. We have to go back into history, because it is important to look at how media started to just get a perspective. And we can start off by saying that media started with, with technological evolution, with industrialization. So the first invention was printing press. Now, how did printing press come up? Media basically came when there was a need for mass communication, when we needed to reach out to a lot of people at the same time. It started with industrialization because there was mass movement, mass migration of population. People shifted from rural areas, and we saw setting up of industrial towns and urban centers. And there arose a need for mass-produced messages to be transmitted to large, anonymous, and heterogeneous crowds. And hence we saw, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Printing press was invented, but it was not readily acceptable. It took time for people to accept it. Of course, the acceptance came from the masses, and gradually, the Orthodox Church, empires, kings, governments, they accepted it. They incorporated it into their everyday lives. But it was not easy. And the most important change came, a revolution came, when books came into existence. So now, why were books a revolution? Because for the first time, content, like anyone could write their stories, their experience, their ideas, and it could be easily and affordably shared shared into masses, which was not the case earlier. Now, we've had scripts and we've had scriptures, but it was very exclusive. But with printing, books could be printed and could be shared easily. And so, there was a lot of circulation of ideas, especially, in different languages, and people related to that. So people could relate to people centric themes and stories. And that is why it was a revolution. And by 1500, we had like 15,000 books which were printed. And Bible was the most printed book of the time. And till that time, till the books came into existence, there was we had printing press, but it did not print newspaper. What it printed was pamphlets, or, just small pieces of information on paper, and it was distributed. So newspapers actually came into existence much later. And we all know how newspapers revolutionized. Books and newspapers play a huge role in so many revolutions that have taken place around the world, from Russian to French, all revolutions. Now, the next big invention was that of radio. Radio was electromagnetic waves were discovered before before the 20th century, but they were not used. The whole technology of radio was not really used for mass media purpose. They were used to contact ships, and the quality of the voice was so bad, so they did not use electromagnetic waves to send messages through voice, but they used Morse code. This changed, post. This changed later, and better technology was developed. And in World War I, radio gained major significance because military used it. It used it to send messages, and it completely eliminated the need for a physical messenger. Next comes World War II. Now, after World War I, radio stations had started being set up around the world. It started from US, US, UK. So we had KDK and BBC. But after World War II is when, or during the World War II, is when radio really took significance, because it helped relay news of the war to the public. And it became a rallying point. It became a rallying point because the governments used it for their own propaganda, for justifying the need for a war. And hence radio became very important. And post-World War, actually, they started playing music or, other things on radio. They used to play earlier as well, but post-World War II, major magazine type programs started coming on radio, which were very, very popular throughout the world. The next invention, and a very, very important invention, was films. Now, we credit the Lumiere brothers for this. The technology came from them. They developed the cinematograph, which was a camera and a projector and also a printer. Now, this was a big revolution because there was photography earlier, and there were means where you could move photographs one after the other at a certain speed to get an idea of a motion picture. But for the first time, you could project that at such a level. And, you could record as well as project. So, and it completely changed our traditional modes of entertainment. People looked up to, the most common and popular mode of entertainment became watching films. So, now, films were basically used in three ways. First was films for propaganda, which is the governments use them for their own propaganda. Then there were commercial films, we all know about them, and then there were documentary films. We will discuss a little bit more about documentary films. Now, just fun fact, Lumiere brothers showcased films at the Watson Hotel in Mumbai in 1896, and the fun part is that the clip they showed first was that of a train, running on the track. And the camera was in front of the train, and it looked as if the train is moving towards the camera. So there were people in the hall. They thought the train is going to run over them. They got so scared, they ran out of the hall. So that is the impact on psychology of films, of different shots. Then, now, as I said, we'll discuss documentary films more. Documentary films are very important. In the words of Bill Nichols, the pleasure and the appeal of documentary film lies in its ability to make us see timely issues in need of attention. Now, need of attention. They acquaint us to different worlds, views of the world. They are factual reports of a particular subject. Could be an event, current affairs, histography. They basically are a holistic approach to see a subject. Then they are universally accepted as evidence, as a source of knowledge, because they are documenting a particular event or a particular situation, a current affair. So they are universally accepted, and hence they have a lot of say in social advocacy and news reporting. Now, the next big invention was that of television in broadcasting. Now we have radio, but television takes it to a different level. Broadcasting is important because it made reaching millions of people at one time much, much easier. It was the fastest way of reaching to the masses. And they were heterogeneous, anonymous masses. So it was a wonderful, wonderful medium. Now, television basically grew out of existing technology. It was just technology. It's just that Mr. Farnsworth was a young, inventor. He made an electron beam which could reproduce images, and that changed the world. So that was television. Now the problem with television and radio, the two major broadcasting media, was that they had a very high degree of regulation. They had a very high degree of control by public authority. The regimes, the governments, they've always kept control over mass media, and broadcasting suffered. I wouldn't say suffered, but broadcasting was majorly bogged down because of that. And that is what led to the prosperity or, the popularity of social media. Social media obviously started with supercomputers, and scientists tried to develop, engineers and scientists, they tried to develop ways to network between the computers. And when that happened, so internet came in, and we had internet even in the 60s, but it was very limited. And we saw in the late 90s and the early 2000s, social media really picking up. So the first social media site was 6 Degrees, which was created in 1997. And what made it really popular was blogging, because people could express themselves. They could share their ideas, share their thoughts, share their experiences. Now, as we all know, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they all came into existence in 2005, 2006, and they remain the most popular form of social media. And today, we have a boom of social media sites, and they're all, they can be interlinked, and we can do cross-posting. So we can get news from one place and post it somewhere else. You may make a film, I like it, I share it with anyone through my social media network. So sharing, distribution has become much easier and much more personal now. And the best part is that the regulation is not too much on it. So, of course, that it also has its own downfalls, but it is also very personal and a free choice for all of us. So, social media led to creation of exchange of information, ideas, interest, and has become, of course, the most used tool of expression. And as I was discussing earlier, it is distinctive from other forms of media because it is interactive. It promotes user-generated content like photos, videos, text, and comments. It is service-specific. You do not have to follow something which you do not like. You can just be part of something that you like. And it is the fastest form of media. So social media has, because of these things, social media has led to creation of an online society, a public democracy, which of course has its own social dilemmas. Now, the biggest achievement of social media is that it is creating history which is not of the victors, but it is history of the masses and by the masses. So social media is a tool of historiography, and real-time events are being documented, and first-time evidence is coming online all the time. So whereas earlier, we waited for someone to, give us an account of what exactly happened, here, before it actually comes on any other form of media, we get first-hand news from real people who have been there. And that is its biggest strength. And which also gives power to the people who can use it because it is interactive. Now, we have seen it create, great movements around the world. We've had like the innumerable and successful and not successful, but the power of social media cannot be disputed. Now, when we come to social media, it becomes very important that the content you generate for it is, I've seen a lot of content online, which is probably very good as an idea, but fails to capture people's attention, maybe because of the way it has been produced. So, a good story cannot necessarily turn into a good book. So similarly, a good idea cannot necessarily turn into a good, video or a picture or a film. So I'm just going to share some small basics about how to make a film. If you have an idea, if you want to share certain knowledge, a story or your experience. So what is probably, some basics you can apply so you can come up with a very good production quality. So production of a film today, with the advancements in technology, it is not difficult. Anyone with a smartphone can make a film, all right? And now filmmaking is basically divided into 3 stages. It is pre-production, production, and post-production. Pre-production. Pre-production is planning, it's conceptualization. So you have an idea, you need to, just having an idea is not enough, but you need to figure out how best to tell that idea, to show that idea, to explain that idea. So for pre-production, you need conceptualization, you need scripting, shooting script and storyboard. You need your, you plan for all these things. Then you need your equipment. What all do you need? And you need a crew for more professional type of work. But if you don't have a crew, you're doing single-handedly, that is also absolutely fine. Very, very possible with technology today. And of course, it also depends on the location where you will be shooting. So conceptualization, as I told earlier, the idea of your film is the most important part. Everything else comes later. What is it that you want to share, you want to tell? That is most important. So you have to be very clear about that. The next is you need to have a clarity on the message you want to send across. So, say you want to make a film about mathematics, okay? So, what is it? Why do you think that people would be interested in your film? Has to be very clear. That is the message. Why do you think that your message is important for others? Then you have to know who are going to be your target audience. Every content is not for everyone. So, your target audience are kids, they are young adults, they are seniors, they are adults, The age groups, you can define 18 to 60, 60 to 90. Different type of stories appeal to different type of audiences, and you must figure out their likes and dislikes so that you are able to process your information accordingly, and it serves purpose for both ways. Then, of course, the length of the video. Too long is never a good story. Too short is also never a good story. So, how long do you think you can capture the attention of your audience? You must figure that out. The next is, of course, budget. With all the technological advancements, budget is not too much of a problem these days. Very good, high-end Bollywood films are also made on very low budgets now. A lot of documentaries are made on no budgets now. So, but still, when you're going out, when you're planning for your film, you must consider how much it is going to cost. It's a very important part of conceptualization. Now, when we talk about script and storyboard, now you've got your idea. Now we have to talk about the script and the storyboard. The most important thing is research. Whenever you're going out with an idea is one thing, but you need to know the truths behind your idea, whatever it is. So you must have research, and research you must follow. I follow a very simple rule. The primary research and the secondary research. Primary research is talking to people, collecting first-hand information. Secondary research is to read about it as much as possible. Then comes then you have to build your narrative structure. What is a narrative structure? An idea is just an idea till you don't know how to tell it. And how do you tell it? What is going to be the beginning? What is going to be the, how you're going to introduce it? How are you going to bring in the complications? How are you going to resolve the complications? 3 distinct parts of a narrative structure. You must figure it out. And, very frankly, the more you get into it, you realize that you can play a lot with narrative structure. You can start with the resolution, or you can start with the problem and then come to introduction. But that is a more complicated part. But nonetheless, you must figure out what is your narrative structure. Then comes your character building. So if there are elements, or if there are real people, characters in your film, then you need to give them a distinct outline. You must, like if say you are introducing a concept on, say, gardening. So you may need a gardener, or a person from, a household person, a housewife, or anyone, but you need to make out her, you need to be very clear about what her character is and how you portray that character. Positive character, negative character, whatever it is, it has to be very clear in your mind. So usually as filmmakers, when we start filming and we are building on characters, we try to, ask ourselves, if this person gets into a situation like this, what would he do? So we try to build character up to that level. So there is a lot of clarity. Then comes your storyboard. Now, storyboard is a very interesting concept. The storyboarding is basically, once you have your, your script ready, you break it down in each shot. And what we do in storyboarding is we actually draw out each shot. So we basically make the film on paper. We make it in our mind, we make the film on paper, and then we go out to shoot it. So storyboarding is a very, very interesting concept. When you get down to do it, you realize what works, what doesn't work. I don't know if you guys know about Alfred Hitchcock, this very, very famous filmmaker, Hollywood filmmaker. He was interested in his films, which are one of the best films. He would be interested in the process of filmmaking only till the time storyboard was done, because he loved playing with the idea of the film and putting it into script and putting it into storyboards. So after the storyboards were done, they say that he would he was just not interested in the rest of the process. So the rest of the work was done by the crew. The storyboard is that important. So that's your storyboard. Each shot has been sketched separately. And then comes your shooting script. Now, shooting script is very detailed. Some even call it screenplay and everything. It must have clarity on the location, on the time. Say the timing is the time in the film of morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever. Then there's a breakdown of each shot. So that is it's a extensive process, but it's usually worth it. A good script makes a good film. Now, another important thing to prepare for in your pre-production is your equipment. Without equipment, you will definitely face problems. The most important piece of equipment is your camera. And as I've discussed earlier, you can shoot a film with a smartphone these days. They come with very good inbuilt cameras and even microphones. So you can use one smartphone or multi-smartphones to shoot. Otherwise, another very good option, which is also used professionally, is DSLR cameras. Now they are affordable to not affordable range, and they're from beginner to absolutely professional range as well. But they are very easy to use cameras. The quality is very, very good, and they are very, very manageable. So these are your DSLR cameras, and you can shoot videos on them. The other thing you need is lenses. Then you need tripod. Of course, the camera, you need the camera bag, and you need lights. And along with lights, you need reflectors. So that is the whole kit. Now, other important thing is sound. Okay, so as I said, smartphones have inbuilt mics as well, but the quality usually is not up to the mark because they kind of catch sound from everywhere. They're not unidirectional. So if you want to focus on one particular thing, it's very difficult to cut out the rest of the noise, which we call the ambient sound. So it's always a good idea to get a good mic and a sound recorder. It helps. Sound recorders don't necessarily have to be an extra equipment. You can record sound in your phone or in your camera, but a good mic is always a good investment. So, as I said, sound is as important as an image, and smartphones and cameras have inbuilt mics, but the quality enhances considerably when a dedicated external mic is used. The most commonly used are the lapel mics and the shotgun mics. So that's a lapel mic which you can just clip onto your piece of, whatever you're wearing, and they can be connected to your computer or to your camera, and the recording will happen directly there. And this is a shotgun, which can also be attached to your camera, or you can just keep it, closer to where you are shooting, and it will capture the sound. So now, after you have done all this preparation, this is your pre-production. Now comes the time of action, which is your production. A production, most important thing is shooting. It is the only thing actually. So now after we have done all our thinking, planning, procurement, everything, we go for shooting. Now shooting is the most fun part, according to me. And you can, this is also a place where things happen on their own. Pre-production is very controlled. Shooting is when we say that the film starts making itself. You realize things and they keep adding on, or you delete, all that happens, yeah. So for shooting, you need your camera, you need your lighting, you need your sound, you need your characters, your actors, your talent, whoever. You need your props, which is properties, things that you probably need when you're shooting, which you need in the frame. You have to figure out the location. Now, I'm going to go a little bit into details of the kind of cameras you can use. Now, cameras, smartphones, DSLRs, we have very good cameras. These are some which I can say are very good. Of course, there are a lot of other varieties as well. So Canon EOS 80D, Canon 90D, Canon Rebel T8i, these are very good from Canon. I have personally used Nikon D3500 and I have been very, very satisfied. A newer version, 5600, is also available and it's very good. Now, tripods, you have tripods for cameras and you can operate them using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So you don't have to physically press the button and do it. You can just do it remotely. So and you need tripods for stability. See, when we try to shoot with hand, you will notice that usually there's a lot of movement. You may not feel it, but when you actually shift the footage onto computer or when you're editing or when you see it in playback, you realize that, you at least feel that I wish it was more stable. There's so much of movement. So tripods ensure that stability. We can never get that stability with our hands. There are other things as well which we use for, like when we do moving shots. So we use tracks, we use trolleys, but those are very high end and we use them for bigger projects. Basic, we can do with tripod and they come with rolling wheels as well. So they give much more stability than a hand would give. So those are your different types of tripods. And as I said, if you have camera, you need to work out your lighting. Now, lighting is very, very important. They say it's, it's the brush with which a cinematographer paints this frame. So lighting is very important. I'm going to teach you basic of lighting, like how do you light up an object. This is very, very basic of it. It's called the 3-point lighting. Now, the 3 lights that we use in this are called the key light, the fill light, and the backlight. So if you have your subject and you have a camera in front of him, so key light is your main light. Key light is which will basically illuminate your subject or the person. And you can keep it at, say, about 45 degrees from the camera, at a 45 degrees from the ground as well. That is the thumb rule. We go with that, but you can change it according to your preference. So that is your main light. Now, of course, when you throw light from one side, it makes shadow on the other side. Okay. And we don't want, shadows are used for dramatization. And most of the things we don't want to dramatize. So we need to kill those shadows. And how do we kill them? We kill them by using the fill light, which is not as strong as the key light. It is just enough to kill the shadows. So we use the fill light on the other side of the camera. And fill lights are also used pretty closer to the camera, but then that can make the subject look very flat. So usually there's some distance which is maintained. And the third is your backlight. So there will be some light from the top or from the bottom, from somewhere, depends on your artistic tastes, that you throw at the back of the person, because otherwise for the camera, the person and the background, they are same. And it look as if the person is pasted to the background. So you need to throw some light on the back. So it kind of, shows the contours of the subject and it doesn't look as if it is pasted to the background. So that's your 3-point lighting system. This is the basic. We use it for everything. We basically kind of do all our artistic experimentation around these three lights. Now, when it comes to light, of course, from where do you get the light? So light sources, the most, easily available, effective, best use is natural light, your sunlight. Most of us use that for our work. Then comes your tungsten lights, which are your common indoor bulbs. You can easily use them because they produce the same kind of color that sunlight produces. So you can use your tungsten lights. Besides these, there are some artificial lights which you can use, which are affordable, one is the softbox. Softbox is usually, it is for indoor shoots, and it's very popularly used for video blogging because, it is diffused light. It gives just the right amount of expression. It doesn't flatten you. It doesn't, paste things, but it just kind of gives a right type of expression that you need. So that is your softbox. It is used for cooking shows as well because it lights up evenly. For cooking shows, for video blogging, for product lighting. The next is umbrella light, which is like an umbrella. You can fold it also like an umbrella. It is portable and it's very affordable. It is a directional light, so that means it is not flat light over everything. But if you want to portray, illuminate one particular thing or something, one particular area, this will directly light that up. And it comes in two types, which is reflective and shoot through. So reflective is the light is thrown, it has a reflective inner surface and the light bounces off it, and which can illuminate your subject or your area. The other is shoot through, so that will diffuse the light. It does not have reflective surface. It is a translucent kind of surface, a material, and the light basically passes through it, so it diffuses, and you can use that for lighting. And this is, of course, used for dramatic indoor lighting. And it also, it doesn't create very sharp shadows. It creates very soft shadows. It is directional, so it creates shadows, but they're not very sharp. Other is ring light. This is, it's like a ring. It has, so because it doesn't have a light source in the middle, it is empty. It is not too much of light. It doesn't make the face, or, it's usually used for beauty products. It is portable, and because it, as I was saying, that it doesn't have the center part, it doesn't make the face look flat or dull. It is not even, it just gives the right kind of light for the contours to come out. Then there is the LED on camera lights. These are for travel, for, you're on the go and you need to record things. You just put them on your camera. They are battery operated, and so they're very easy to take with you. They're very easy to take with you, and they're very, very affordable. You can just put them on your camera and use them. Now, we got all the equipment, we've got everything ready, but none of it will make sense if we don't have the right shots. So for your story to come across, you also need your camera to work as the viewpoint of the audience. And for that, you must have the right shots. You must remember the audience is seeing what the camera is showing them. So if you now shots and the right application of shots make a huge difference in that. So some of the shots that we use, these are the shots. There are extreme close-up shots, which is really close-up. Then there is close-up shot, there's mid close-up, mid shot, mid long shot, extremely long shot. Then of course there are zoom in and zoom out shots for dramatic effects. So each shot portrays a certain kind of feeling. You know, an extremely long shot will give you a sense of depth. An extreme close-up will give you a sense of, you know, sometimes it is used to enhance fear or certain emotions. You know, you see these extreme close-ups of people's eyes when they're trying to portray some emotions. Then there are, you know, for your conversations, interviews, you use mid close-ups and mid shots. Long shots are used for establishing the time or the location, and extreme long shots are again used to portray the larger picture, the location, say a village, you know, a town, a city, a place, whatever. So each shot has a specific purpose, and it really helps if you know, so that you can then maximize the effect of your idea. So another important thing about camera is your camera angle and the composition. Now I'll start with composition. Composition is basically the things that you have inside your frame. So, you know, as I said, the audience sees what you show through the camera. So whatever the camera is showing, that is what the audience is seeing. All right. So if you want to show flowers in the background, so you have to have flowers in so they are a part of your composition. If you want to show building, then and a person standing in front of a building, so then that is your composition will have to show building and the person both together in your shot. Okay. Now the second important thing is the camera angle, which is basically the positioning of the camera. Okay. Now this again, as I said, is the viewpoint of the audience, and it shows the area which is covered. Okay. So what that means is, so we have eye level shots, which is level, say what you see right in front of a person. Okay. Like we are all at the moment, most of us are at eye level to each other. Then we have the low angle shots. So if you want to show something very big, you take the camera down and make it look big. So that's a low angle shot. Then is your high angle shot, which is if you want to show something small, you shoot from the top. So that thing looks even smaller. Then you have the overhead shot, which is used for dramatization to create certain type of feeling. But the idea again is that the camera is exactly on top of the object or, you know, the person. So it gives a overhead view of what is down there. The next is aerial shot, which is an extremely long shot, which gives, which basically is to establish the location and the time. We use it for those, or, you know, very dramatic effects like people falling from the sky or something like that. But yeah. Then, now this is, if you've taken care of these things, that forms your production part. You finish your shooting, keeping those things in mind. Next comes the third part of your filmmaking, which is post-production. And the post-production is your editing. It is adding your audio tracks, your music. It is adding your graphics and also adding text, which could be your credit roll or your subtitles, whatever. Now, as I said earlier, with the advent of technology, with so much being developed, editing, filmmaking has become easy. And one of the reasons it has become very easy is because we have editing softwares now, which is non-linear editing. We edit on computers, and we have very, very user-friendly editing softwares. Some of the most commonly used ones are iMovie. Then there is Final Cut Pro, which is used professionally, Adobe Premiere Elements, Adobe Premiere Rush, InstaSize, Wondershare Filmora, VideoPro, and there are others as well. These are just to name a few. Now, few things to consider is that your camera and your editing software, they should be compatible. If they're not, then you have to do, either your footage goes waste, or you have to do a lot of conversion and you lose on resolution, quality. So it's always better to make sure that your camera and your editing are compatible. Sometimes you may need to change the format, or you may need to compress your footage. How do you do that? There are compression softwares. There are many available these days. The one I like to use is MPEG Streamclip. But there are, as I said earlier, there are many conversion softwares available, and they're very good. Now, some of the most popular video formats that I used are, MP4, M4P, and these are all MPEG-4 type of formats, MP2, MPEG, MPE, AVI, WMV, MOV, and audio formats also we have to take care of them. So WAV, WMA, MP3, M4A, AAC, they are the most commonly used type of formats. Now, you've got your footage, you've got your audio, you've even decided on a editing software. Now, how to work on the software, that is another important thing. So we call that editing interface, which is the editing interface is the method with which you control the system that is designed for you. So it is what you see on the editing software. What are the things that you see? So we have a source window, which is, one of the windows which shows us the unedited clips. Then the other is the program window, which shows us the edited clips. Whatever you have edited, it will come on the other window. Then you have the timeline, which will show us the audio and the video tracks. I don't know if you can see, these are, the video tracks, and there are the audio tracks. So this is your source window. This is your program window. These are your timelines, video tracks, audio tracks. Then you have tool windows. They'll be here somewhere, or here they're showing here. So here the tool windows is where you have your effects, your filters, your tools which you use for cutting the shots, putting them together, sequencing them. That is where you get your tools from. And the next is your bin. Here is the bin, here is the bin, which basically shows all your footage, which is, the available clips you have, which you're going to use to make your film. Now, you've got your editing table, you've got your footage. Now there are, as I was saying earlier, the narrative structure. Now picking up from there, people have also developed different editing styles, how they want to show their story. Sometimes films change completely on the editing table. They say that it's on the editing table that a film is made. So there are two most popular styles which I'll discuss today. One is the continuity editing. Continuity, the word itself is, maintain a pace, a timeline, and just go with the flow. So in continuity editing, when we jump from one shot to the other, the transition is invisible. You don't even realize that you're moving from one shot to the other. Say from this shot to this shot, or this shot. So the transition has to be such that you do not, there's no jerk in it, and you don't lose the flow of the conversation there. Okay. Then comes the spatial unity of segment, meaning there has to be a continuity in the location, the space which you are using or which you are showing. So it cannot be that, one shot is, say, inside the kitchen, and the next shot you're just jumping and moving to, say, a restaurant. So that is discontinuity in space and time. But in continuity editing, you will have to justify how you got from the kitchen to the restaurant. Okay. Then, as I said, match on action. So you have to give justifications. If you're moving from kitchen to the restaurant, you must have the shots where you just pick up your maybe a coat or something and you're opening your door and you're going out, and then next shot would be you're entering a restaurant. So the transition should not look jumpy. It should come as a continuous flow. The other very, very popular and more artistic style of editing is montage. Now, montage is basically a lot of stories put together, a lot of perspectives put together. So we use montage to show large information in a short span. So we have a lot of things to show, say different things happening in different places, but similar things. Then we use a montage. We put all of them together in one frame. That is a montage. Okay, so which is basically a juxtaposing of different shots and intertwining multiple storylines of a narrative. So there may be, different type of people doing different things, but of the similar narrative, and we just put them all together. That is your montage. This, of course, helps in compressing time. It saves up on time. It makes things move faster. Now, the other thing that I discussed in post-production is your audio. Now, audio, sound editing, few things you have to make sure of is that your video and audio are in sync. Okay, if they go out of sync on your timeline, I'm sure, you may have gone through some of those really bad experiences where somebody is speaking and the voice is coming much later. You don't want that to happen. Then definitely use ambient sound. When you're recording your sound, make sure that, when everything shuts off, keep your mic on for some time and you have recorded some ambient sound. Because usually the amount of audio we use is more than the amount of video we use. The footage fades off faster, the audio goes off later. So make sure you have the ambient sound. Sometimes there may be some glitch in your shooting. You can always use those extra sound bites or sound ambient sound to cover that up. Okay, then you will definitely need to use some music for desired effect for different type of shots that you have taken. So mix them well with the sound and make sure that you balance out the volume levels of each track. It should not be that music just goes blaring up and you can't hear the vocals, you can't hear the dialogues. So the dialogue always will have to be higher, the music less, and when you have to dramatize, the music has to go up. The next is your graphics and text. Now, again, we use different softwares for graphics, whatever graphics you want to portray. The more popular ones are, Adobe After Effects, Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign. We also use them for text. You can also design your text in Graphic Designer, or you can, we have text designs also inbuilt in the editing softwares. Now, with that is the end of your film production. If you do all this, you make a film which has all the elements, at least, these are the basics. We can discuss it much more, but if you just keep these things in mind, you can come up with a good film. And as I said earlier, digitization is a boon because it is a platform like social media, which is, made it possible for people to shoot, edit, decolor, mix, create titles, do everything and make your film and also broadcast it. So you don't need a theater to broadcast your film, or you don't need a lot of equipment, full crew, money. You don't need that. Social media and technology has made these things very, very easy for us. And anyone with an idea can become an influencer and can reach millions across the globe. So That's it from me. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Nidhi.
Thank you, Annie.
My God, so much goes into a filmmaking we never knew. So can you please come to the gallery mode? You have to stop sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. What we thought, Nidhi,
Yes.
just take your mobile, put it on video mode and do little adjustments here and there. And that's what goes into filmmaking. Not exactly, but what we do at home, you know. So today it was a lot of learning and how much effort goes into each and every aspect of filmmaking to make it so effective. Yeah. So open to the audience. Question, answer.
Yes.
Anything would like to clarify further? It's Edu Extension. So please, let's interact and share our views.
Okay.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Yes.
Yes, Anna.
Good
Sahana
evening.
is a very good photographer and I have seen her taking it
Ma'am-
from her mobile itself. So certainly, yes, Sahana, it's a good opportunity for you.
No, ma'am, that is exactly what I feel now. What you have told in the beginning is that I just take my phone and just click a shot. That is not taking a photograph. Now I know what is it into making a movie. Just sit back and we sit with popcorn and we watch the movie, and then nobody even waits to see the names that are going up. This is what happens. So we
Correct.
can't even imagine. I'm sitting with my diary, I'm scribbling so many things out, but then I'm again sitting in this way and thinking that what I am taking back. Ma'am, I actually wanted to ask you that since we are teachers, how could we incorporate all these things in our daily school activities or projects? I mean, like this time I want to share one thing with you. This time for the class 8s, we had this activity or project. They had few chapters and poems, so we had told them that they could choose any one chapter or any one poem, whichever they like, and they had to storyboard it. So when we are reading the chapters, I also have the book in front of me, so pictures are not given. So when they're reading the chapter, we are explaining, but a student has his or her own imagination, the character, what that character is wearing, the use of the colors, the background, the colors that the student is using. Maybe 5-10 students are using, they are dealing with the same chapter, but for each student, everything is different. The way they are illustrating, it is like, I mean, their imagination, they're talking. So ma'am, how could, if you could give us some ideas, like it'll be fun, because now with this online classes, everything is available in Google. So these are the things where they are going to rack their brains and do stuffs, and they were enjoying also. So if you could help me with that.
Okay. Firstly, very, very noble idea. I'm very, very sure that your, students would be so thankful that you are their teacher. You're not giving them things to just learn, mug up and blurt out, but to actually apply their brain. So excellent idea. What I can think of is, filmmaking art form is the easiest way to reach out to film, to kids, okay? And I have seen it with my children. I have done it with them. And luckily, they're doing it in school as well. Like you said, you've taken a chapter and you ask them to storyboard. Of course, I understand your restrictions. Everybody doesn't have, especially students don't have access to phones or computers. But and you've asked them to storyboard. If like my son, he has access to computer, and what I have done with him is I give him, say, a subject, any subject. Like he was asking me, he's a little mature, he's 11 years old. So I give him more of political subjects, say, US elections or whatever. And I ask him, I say, you tell me what you felt about it. And the interesting thing was, he made a PowerPoint presentation, okay? And which is, again, I would say, a form of telling a story, okay? Slide after slide. PowerPoint presentation, and he really stressed on the language which was used in, during the elections from both the sides. I wouldn't name one party. Okay. Now, I found that very interesting because my son, though he's matured, he doesn't have yet the capabilities to understand the democratic processes. What he understood was the language, and he expressed that in his PowerPoint presentation. So, he was able to stress that this person said this, which led to this, and ultimately created this problem, but ultimate solution came through this. So, there was introduction, there was a complex problem, and then there was a solution as well. So just giving you an idea, maybe in groups, if you ask them to create stories, act it out, even if they can't shoot it, just to make, do plays, act out, role models. If they can do that, kids can be very creative.
Thank you so much.
I have something to add here, Khushbu, Nidhi. In our school, we have very young kids who are in like class 3, 4, 5. We have, quarterly sessions of presentations done to the parents, where students come on the stage and they present the curriculum taught to them through any form.
Okay.
So my daughter would come up and stand, for example, on a stage and tell a set of audience what they've learned in each subject through any mode. It could be through music, it could be through drama, it could be through skit, it could be through rap, could be anything. So it is one way to bring creativity out from kids, and also to present to the audience the different facets of syllabus taught in different variety of forms. Plus, I think IB does allow that platform also to us for children 11, 12th, where there is a component of CAS, which is creativity, activity, and service. It's an intensive 18-month program that they do in 3 areas. But the presentation of the CAS can be of their choice. So they can present the whole thing to a community in a community center. It could be in the form of a video, it could be in the form of a film, it could be extension of what they have done throughout 18 months in whatever way they want to present. I think so. If you leave on the kids, I think they're very creative in bringing those platforms out, because they're much more, I think, matured and creative and tech savvy than what we are. So I think it brings a lot of creativity in them, is what I have seen.
True.
So I think also, I think Sahana ma'am was asking about younger kids. If you give them a subject in the class and tell them to present a curriculum that they've been taught, in the past 6 months in their own ways, I think they'll come up with brilliant ideas. We've done that, and children have done very nicely at the lower levels. So maybe it can help her, I guess.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Adhish, are you there? Adhish? Adhish, where are you?
I'm here.
Yes. So Adhish is here. I request him to share some or to add something to that. He is a young boy with 6 documentaries to his credit and 5 documentary photo series. And that is his passion. So Adhish, would you like to add something, extend something more to what we have done now?
Thank you so much. First of all, Nidhi ma'am, very informative session it was. Like I can really relate with those terms of how to do with the pre-production and the post-production things, and all the lighting and the equipment which we should use. These all terms are very relatable. And what I want to add and about my documentary series is I always go with the a long duration of documentary series. So I give 1 to 2 weeks for the pre-production, then shooting will be done in 2 to 3 weeks, and then post-production. So what I have learned is there's a lot of hidden stories within us, and these documentaries will help to increase the awareness and bring out those stories to show what actually they're meant to be. So it was really a beautiful or informative session. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adish. We have discussed about media, and we have here Avinash Agarwal with us, who is dealing with media, the Japanese media and the Indian media. So Avinash, would you like to add something? Avinash, you are on mute. You are on mute.
Okay. First of all, let me congratulate and thank Ms. Nidhi for a wonderful presentation. I am a veteran not of the filmmaking, but a print medium. But now, there's no media can live in a silo now, all these media must interact with each other. That's it. So we must think of how we can do it better.
Yeah.
That's your thing. Yeah. Great.
Thanks. Any other questions coming up?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was quite informative. I'm actually an IB student, IB film student, and I love filming. So one of my biggest question was actually based on a discussion I was having in class. So in today's time, content that is coming from India has been not just recognized within India, but even globally with nominations in Emmys and Oscars. The thing is, I wanted to question, to what extent do you think has OTT platforms actually helped in the content production that is happening these few years?
Oh, completely agree with you. The content quality wise has really gone up. India is producing very good quality films. And if you're asking OTT, the contribution of OTT platforms, it is in trend with the rest of the world. You are seeing it throughout the world. OTT has given voice to the people, to the masses. I started with it and I said that, the masses are writing history now. It is not, we're not getting it from the victors. So definitely OTT has given us a platform and has played a huge role. And we are seeing, so many, Indian documentaries winning Oscars, and the reach has increased where we did not, about 20 years back, 25 years back, we did not know Oscars. Now, not our mainstream films, but our documentary films are winning Oscars, which is a great privilege for us. And I think it is because the reach has increased, which is a direct consequence of the OTT platforms. So yeah, all credit goes to it.
Thank you so much.
Any more questions? But yeah, Nidhi, I was just wondering, something was just coming into my mind.
Yeah.
What really made you, what really attracted you to select this line, this discipline of filmmaking? Because it's something very different than what generally at your age the girls will do that. So what really drove you to this line?
I think, Auntie, I think I had a little bit of activism in me ever since. I was a rebel at home, and then I studied political science. I did my bachelor's honors in political science, and that made me aware of politics, society, and the problems with. At that time, when I was studying, so the problems our country was facing and around the world. I loved international politics. And then when I got into filmmaking, so, there was an option of going to commercial cinema and then I joined NDTV, that was news. The other option was to join commercial cinema. But I felt, I was really touched by a lot of stories which I came across as, when I was working with NDTV, or generally before that, when I'd started making films and I worked with a lot of, institutions and NGOs. And the stories really touched me. I felt very passionately about them.
So really wanted to reach to the masses through your films and through your stories, something like that?
Very frankly, for me, the driving point was always that to make a change in their lives, if I can. So I wanted to make things better for the people whose stories I was speaking and telling. And in some cases it worked, in others it hasn't. It hasn't always been a very rewarding career in that term, but I have enjoyed doing my part.
Okay, but then you were always out in the field with your camera. So what made you to enter into academics? Though in the same line in the filmmaking, but still, you know, it's a very different thing than being in the mainstream with the camera.
So yes, A, opportunity, and B, auntie, it was, my mother was also into academics. A number of people from my family were into academics.
Okay.
I always enjoyed being with them, you know, how they always got into a lecture mode and, you know, they always had something to teach. And I don't know, they felt younger than the other professionals, you know, just in their...
That I agree completely.
So I enjoyed it. I got initial success. I got into it pretty early, but I got success. My first stint into teaching was with the kids with special needs. And I did some workshops with Sri Ram School for kids with special needs. And that was a very, very fulfilling experience. And I didn't want to stop there. I really enjoyed making that difference in, you know, in the lives of young kids. So I just continued with that.
That's great. That's really great. The teaching is certainly a very, very fulfilling line, you know, and every day is a new day. Every day there are new things coming up. So even I felt being in 40 years in this line, that every day used to be a new day for me.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you are never, there's never a dull moment.
There's never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. Yes, agree.
So, filmmaking in itself is very passionate and enjoyable field. And on top of that, to do it with young kids, youngsters, is like double whammy. It's nice.
True. That's right. And Yash, we also have a very renowned photographer from Mumbai today. Yash, are you there? Yash, are you there? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Yash. A very, very renowned photographer from Mumbai, and he photographs he does the photography for the film industry. So yeah, should you like to add something?
The main thing is the knowledge was amazing what we have got today. I'm more into stills and all, like I do more of the stills and all. But I really thank you, ma'am, to give this amazing knowledge. Now, even I feel I should start doing some documentary kind of things where at least some minimalistic, the knowledge gave me a little boost. So I'm really thankful for today's informative knowledge, ma'am.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Thank you, Nidhi. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, as a filmmaker, were you inspired by any particular film movement or like technique that you applied in your filming?
But frankly, initially, yes, I tried to copy all the techniques, everything. But, you know, later on, you kind of, I think with age and also, you know, you kind of mature with all the projects that you do. So later on, it was more about, I want to tell it my way. So I like being, I like to do observational cinema. I went for that. I wanted to be the silent person who's just observing the way things are moving and try to weave a story around that, not really trying to influence the way things were. So if you ask me, my style has mostly been observational. Yeah.
All right.
This is Arundhati Sarkar, Dr. Goyal. I have a request. First of all, I have to thank Dr. Goyal for coordinating this wonderful training program, and Ms. Singh, this was so informative even for a novice like me. And I would like to request you and also Dr. Goyal, if you can have a second webinar where perhaps you can give us tasks for especially novice like me, where we can, being an educator, we are constantly, thinking about ways to improve ways of studying, maybe methodologies or, how the way that a child is studying or something or the other, with maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, even if we click it on our smartphone and have it, follow your techniques, 1 or 2 at least. Most of the things I have to go back and see your slides again. Some definitely resonated, and if we can follow your, the instructions and make short films and send it to you, and you can analyze, then we will have a learning experience. And this day and age of doing things yourselves, I honestly think will benefit from this.
Definitely, that's a good idea. If Mali auntie, it's up to you. We can organize.
Oh my God, I will be too happy, Nidhi. It will be our pleasure.
Definitely do that. That's a good idea, actually.
That's so nice of you to accept it. Certainly we'll go for that. And thank you, Arundhati, for joining. I know you were very, very busy today. In spite of that, you have joined the session.
Glad I could join. It was a net problem that slowed me down, but I'm so thankful I did. We need to do short films for our, teaching learning process. Definitely.
Arundhati is the principal of Manovikas Kendra, Mano Chetna in Mumbai.
Kolkata.
Yes.
Kolkata.
Yes, Kolkata, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so may I request, before you leave, please attend to the poll. We have only 2 questions. So please, and the choice is given there, the multi-choice questions. So just please attend to that before you leave. And may I request, any more questions coming up?
Hi, Auntie.
Hi, Shreya. Yeah, Shreya is another very, very young documentary filmmaker.
Not
Yes,
yet.
Shreya, come on, add something.
Not yet. Hi, Nidhi. Thank you so much. I feel like when you introduced yourself and told everyone why you want to be a filmmaker and that you are a rebel, it clicked on many levels. Auntie would know.
Yes, Shreya, I know.
My question to you is that, and also as somebody who's trying to pursue this, is that fiction, non-fiction, whatever it is, I think the most important thing, and we all agree on, is the story. If you don't have a story, there's nothing to it. The equipment won't help.
True.
So I want to know that when do you know that this is something that you want to settle on? Like, when is that idea the big idea that you want to go ahead with?
Very interesting question. Actually, yes, it takes time. It takes a lot of thinking. But for me, the moment is usually when I know there is a message in the story. When I'm very clear about what I want people to realize when they see my film. What is it that I want them to take back with them? So if I feel very strongly about that message, that is when I decide that I have to make that film. And I have to work. And usually, with the clarity of the message, the story falls into place. You realize as you're yourself into the field, we have to follow the steps, not rush into them, get, build on the story, not rush through it. But if you have the message clear, then you know that this is the film like I always say, I was born to make this film. So that is when you know that you have to do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
All the best, Shreya.
Shreya is
Thank
currently
you.
in Delhi working in this line.
Oh, great. Very
Mhm.
nice.
Yes.
I have to thank you, Dr. Goyal, for this wonderful session you've had, and also ma'am for this wonderful session. It was very, very informative. So much to take in from this. And once again, congratulations for this edu extension that you have started, ma'am. This is something great that you have come up with, and we look forward for more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jaya. Jaya is the vice principal of Mangalam Vidya Niketan, where I have also worked. Yeah.
Dr. Goyal, we are hoping and we're looking forward to your edu extension, because we know what a wonderful educationist you are. And we are looking forward to the massive amount of knowledge we are going to gather through your channel. So all the best. And we're keeping our fingers crossed for the wonderful, the learning experience we're going to get from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arundhati. We all have to do it together. Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm always with you. Whenever you want, Mano Chetna is by your side. And you are part of Mano Chetna,
Yes.
like a mentor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mashita.
It was wonderful listening to all the information.
Thank you, Mashita. It looks like there is some audio problem.
I hope we put it in the school. I think so.
Yes, now it's coming. Now it's coming. Carry on, Mashita, please.
Ma'am, it was a wonderful experience, and thank you from Miss Singh. It was wonderful. I was a bit apprehensive about the whole thing, but it really came out so well. It was very informative, very informative. We carry a lot of things to be put up in the school.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Bose.
Thank you,
Thanks
ma'am.
for joining.
Yes, Miss Singh, we really look forward to bothering you again in future. And Dr. Goyal, big request to you to help us to make some educational videos to learn to make it. Miss Singh, please help us. So much to do in this day of hands-on, we have to do our own stuff. So if we learn to make it, then it's wonderful. I know my coordinator is making cooking videos. That's her hobby. Shriparna is doing it. So I'm sure she's learned a lot from the way she has to place her camera. If Shriparna is there, I'm sure that is why she was sending a big thank you. I think she's
I see. You are making that now. Okay.
She sends it on her YouTube channel and all that.
I see. Thank
Definitely,
you.
I would like to use it for the educational purpose. Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nidhi, you can't escape now.
It'll be a privilege, Auntie. I would love to do it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. Edu Extension is really happy and that so many of you have joined it. A big thank you from Edu Extension. Now, may I request Mr. M.K. Goyal to give the vote of thanks? Mr. Goyal, where are you?
Great. Thank you very much, Nidhi. I have been rapidly listening to what all you said, and it pushed me down in my memory lane. Late 50s as a child, we had Fusifilm 400 ASA, a Kodak camera in the hand with a single chance to shoot. Otherwise, you lose big money. No photography in night was permitted. Then came those bulbs, the bulb which gave the flashlight, very expensive. Came electronic flash, which was a revolution, and came then the digital camera. In between journey of 30-40 years passed by, and even now with the advent of phone camera, we have been doing the photography for fun. But thanks to Corona, 2020 brought a revolution in photography, videography, And this is the time when we learned how we need to do whatever is a video, because all of us, we were either in offices or we were either at schools or home, but we needed to communicate with the peer group. And that's where the art of filmmaking developed, or a lesson for children, or PPT. All these things they developed step by step. What you all said today, I think if I look personally, I have been following, but not religiously, not with a conscious mind. Today, you have brought on surface. Why are you making a film? What is your objective? Who are your audience? How do you want to approach? How do you want to close the thing? What are the precautions you should take? How do you plan? I think these bullet points that you have highlighted in your presentation, if we remember it, even if we are making a birthday movie or a small get-together movie, these all the points will play in our mind, and we all will come up with a good video, good lesson for the students, and a memorable video for our life. So with these words, I have seen constantly a good number of educationists all across the country, professional joining it. So thank you all. Thank you from the core of heart on behalf of Dr. Malini Goyal and Nidhi. I think thanks to all the people who joined. Thank you very much. Thanks indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, Nidhi, once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie.